Welcome back to Horses of Courses. I'm Tinia.
And I'm Suzanna.
And you know what's coming up, Suzanna? Our favorite day of the year.
Well, since I'm the one that reminded you about it, I guess I know.
It's Giving Tuesday, December 3rd. I think this is the first time it's been in December in a while.
I think so, too.
It's the biggest giving day of the year for nonprofits. And this year we've done kind of a basic goal. In years past, we've aimed for different things that were more exotic, like a tractor one year. But this year it's just hay, because we're going into winter following a really bad drought. And so just aiming for hay to me is sufficient and almost a lofty goal even. So I think we have a $10,000 goal, and some employers do some matching. You can check with your employer, different platforms.
We like companies that do matching.
We sure do.
That's handy.
And I can't tell you any right off this year. I don't know that Facebook is doing the matching this year. In years past, they have. I have not seen that verbiage so far. But we do already have our Giving Tuesday fundraiser posted on the Heart of Phoenix Facebook page.
We've got $10.
Well, that's toward the 10,000.
We've got. What percent is that?
I mean, here's
$10.
our math. What is that percentage?
I don't know.
Is it
no
0.1 or is it 1? Is it 1% or 0.1%? You
I think
all
it's
listeners
0.1.
chime in and tell us.
I think, didn't that be 0.1?
Stephanie will tell us later.
Does she listen to us?
No, but
She never says she does.
No, I can't imagine she does. She hears us enough on our chat every day.
Right.
But what I was going to say in the vein of Giving Tuesday, here's an idea, and this can really help boost the amount we get.
I've got an idea. They can give on a day that's not a Tuesday.
You can also give any time. Don't be married to the Tuesday. But you can make your own Giving Tuesday fundraisers on Facebook, and they do allow the Giving Tuesday fundraisers to circulate a little better. My own personal Giving Tuesday fundraisers in years past have gotten thousands of dollars. So
mine never go anywhere. I got $2 once.
But and birthday fundraisers. We were at a conference where they said that there was a birthday fundraiser, like collaborated, like they added up all their birthday fundraisers for the year. It was a Nashville dog rescue, and it was like $4 million in 1 year was generated from that organization, for that organization. So just remember, not only give on Giving Tuesday, whether it's $5 or $50,000, make your own Giving Tuesday fundraiser and select Heart of Phoenix. And you never know, those add up. We have almost 80,000 people following the page. So even if they only get $2 per, and only 2,000 of our followers, that's still a couple $1,000 or $4,000. So think of it that way. Make a Giving Tuesday fundraiser. Get that out there now. It'll be here before you know it. We're going to jump into something that, thankfully, over the years, because of how I think our husbandry works, we haven't ran into a ton, but it's colic.
Yeah.
What sets a horse up for colic?
Yeah. Colic sucks.
Well, and we have, over the years, lost a few really great horses to colic, and it is excruciating to watch. Even if you make the call pretty quickly, the horse has still suffered a lot. And you don't know. It can seem really bad and clear up and the horse be totally fine so quickly, it's hard to know when to make that call. But
it can seem really innocent, and then all of a sudden they can crash too.
Yes. So it is so complicated. It's also why you want to make sure you have an emergency relationship with your vet.
Right. Because
it's something that you're not going to be able to manage well if it gets semi-serious on your own. But what are some things, Suzanna, that set a horse up for colic?
Well, shorting them on water. Not having water that they like to drink. The funny thing is, I don't know if you know this, but sometimes horses don't like to drink a certain water.
Right.
Do you know how long it took that big Belgian Spin to learn to drink at my house because he'd only ever had well water and I had city water? I mean, it was days.
Well, and we actually used to run into that, and I think this actually contributed to the positive impact we had on rehabbing a lot of emaciated horses that were body score 1 or less, is the mineral water at one of the foster locations in Kentucky. The well water was so mineralized that a human couldn't stand it. Yeah. And it would take horses a little bit to drink it, but I often have wondered if that mineralization contributed. Now, that's just a theory, but it was high mineral water. What the minerals were, I don't know, but you could taste all types of different mineralization, much different than just sulfur water.
So you could short a horse on water not even on purpose. Like you
Right.
go to a horse show and not realize that your horse hates that water. I tell you a simple trick for that, though, that works a lot of the time is to take your hay and throw it in your water bucket and just leave your hay in there, and it converts the taste of the water. A lot of times they'll start drinking it.
Well, and also, is it not accurate, and this is just me thinking, I've heard this, if you put the water in a container and leave it
In the sun.
it's
Yeah.
going to get
Which
like
is-
chlorine out.
Right. I
And
did
so
that for
forth.
Frank for
Yeah.
several days.
So that's one
I mean,
thing.
not Frank. I'm sorry, Sven.
That's one thing, but also water temperature being super cold. You know, they're not going to want to drink as much when the water is extremely icy.
But I also had a horse that wouldn't drink when the water was warm. Like he just wanted his tepid.
Right. So those
Horses just try to die all the
Yeah,
time.
they
That's
do.
what you need to get out of this, is that horses just try to die.
They're born and they're working toward not being here from the time they're born. So lack of
Feeding them a bunch of grain sometimes can contribute to a colic.
heavy grain feeding for sure.
Especially if you feed them a heavy grain and then throw them in a trailer and stress them out. I don't know why. Sometimes that'll really do it.
But also the type of grain that can, you know, and this varies horse to horse and how they chew, but certain grains that kind of bulk up and become impacted. A horse that scarfs its food could not only choke, but in theory, you could get horses not chewing their food thoroughly and you get some type of impaction. You also, a horse that's stalled a lot is at a significantly higher risk of colic. Colic is really not observed in wild horses. So I can't swear to you it's never observed, but in most literature it's considered much like cribbing.
I've not had a case at my house.
I've never had a
colic.
case at my house, and
Yeah.
the horses are 100% out, never
Yeah.
stalled. And I will say we have had a few cases at the rescue, but that is a high stress environment because there's some competitiveness in eating once a horse is doing well, and it may go out. A couple of cases, nothing that turned serious. The serious cases that we have run into have 100% of the time been in horses that were stalled
Yep.
or in limited mobility situations. 100% of them. So you can look at lots of those that ended really badly, that ended up being euthanasias. They were situations where horses had some degree of stalling. And so if I was going to tell anyone one thing, is to try to make sure your horses are out and moving. And you'll see more colic in the winter. It tends. But whether it's the horses also aren't moving around as much in the winter, you know, your
Or
pastures,
not drinking as
and they're
much.
not drinking as much, they're not moving as much. So those two factors to me are the biggest considerations. But if you're in a situation where you've had multiple horses colic,
You got to be looking at something. 'cause
something's
there's something in your husbandry.
environmental, and because it is an environmental thing, it is simply almost always. Now there are probably some impactions and things where horses had tumors and who
Scar
knows
adhesions.
and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is a management issue. It's a management issue, and I have heard from people where they've had multiple colics. There's a management thing, and you do have to look to see how you can get the horses moving better, maybe change the feeding program. Horses colic less when they have 24/7 access to forage.
Right.
You know, keeping everything moving and not having them scarf, but always knowing that food is there and it being roughage.
And you got to watch too. Sometimes you'll have somebody in your herd who's a resource guarder, and they'll guard the water trough or they'll guard the hay or what. So that can also be.
Well, and that's what I was saying at the rescue. I think the only times we've had that in the fields have been situations where a horse has been encountering a horse that is not letting them get free access to the water or, free access to all the forage. So that's something. I know people have lost horses to colic, and it is something I will mention. You know, at Heart of Phoenix, we personally do not do. We've medically managed a colic a time or two, but intense medical management. When we would always, if it's serious, have a vet come out and do some management. But in terms of like putting them into the hospital and working on that, we have done that a few times. But surgery is something that Heart of Phoenix, it's not something we would do. It's also something I wouldn't do for my personal horses. Once a horse has had the colic surgery, they're always at greater risk. And so it's just something we don't do. So preventing colic is so much more important when you know that next step isn't something you find to be a good next step.
And there can be gas colic too. Like, if you forage this year is probably going to be actually a problem for people because the forage, because of the drought, is not quite great. So there can be gas colic because your forage is taking longer for them to digest. It's fermenting and making gas bubbles and things like that too. So
right, and those tend to, I find, hey, is the horse colicking? By the time you think yes, they're starting to be on the upswing usually. They're variations, so that's something we thought going into winter was good information, good discussion. Next up for our product this month, we are going to talk about ADM33. We used to use ADM33 at the rescue. We do use something different now, simply because it works better for us, but it is a great ration balancer. And one thing that's excellent about it is it's easy to order on Chewy. It's accessible, because so many people ask, well, what do you use? And a lot of the things I want to say, they're not going to be able to get them. But ADM33, Suzanna uses.
I do. It's formulated for high iron areas, which is a problem at my house. I have high iron in the soil and the water. So I would like it to be a little bit lower in NSC, but the way that I manage mine, it hasn't been a problem. You can find ration balancers that are lower than ADM33. But it's a solid product and a reputable product that's formulated for high iron areas, and I like it.
And able to be ordered. You can get it.
Yeah.
Another thing, people listening may not even know what is a ration balancer. So what is a ration balancer?
Well, it's a carrier for minerals and vitamins that's not really very caloric.
For horses that are fat or inclined to be fat, you want a ration balancer. The number of people that, and I know this is a little bit off topic, but the number of people that
just give horses a hay,
or just give them a handful of grain. They're not then getting the vitamins and minerals that they really need unless there are instances where I'm sure the pastures and hays are tested and excellent and perfect, and the horses have such amount of land they can wander and lick the dirt and get there.
But if you've got a fatso, though, you
can't let them do that, right? And so, but there are people who the horses aren't even fatsos, but they're like, look, I have all this great grass. Odds are your horse is lacking something. And so the way grains are made to be fed, you need to feed pounds and pounds of them for them to get enough vitamin and mineral for their daily allowances.
Well, and then sometimes also by law, the vitamin E in horse grain is not required to be the highly uptakeable form. It's just required to be so much of a format of recognized vitamin E. So that's
to be fair in that, we still supplement vitamin E on top of ADM.
Right.
You do.
And
when we used it, we do. And I will say ADM does make the grain that we use at the rescue. It just, cost-wise, we decided to go with KIS Trace. But for people that need something that they can order on something like Chewy, I think it's excellent, and we were super happy with that. So if you're looking for a ration balancer, and people often ask what we recommend, that's something you can order online very easily, and it's economical.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
We have it's kind of some sad news. Kawasaki is going to be our adoptable horse of the month.
We love him.
He's such a good boy. He had been in a long-term foster, kind of hoped it would turn into an adoption, but fostering, there's no pressure there to adopt. You just, in that instance, with a horse like him that's more of a companion, you always kind of hope they're able to stay. But he does have to come back. Nothing that he did, just lady...
She couldn't renew her lease on her piece of property, so she has to move her own horse to a boarding facility.
Right. And so if you remember, he was supposed to be in the ATFO in 2023. He ended up having RER, which is a type of tying up. And it really only seems to bother him if you have him in work. He was very comfortable at the rescue, just hanging out as a companion. He's very quiet, very kind. He is an easy keeper. You could definitely give him little rides with kids very occasionally at a walk, but just we haven't really found a way to keep him comfortable in work. But he's very comfortable as just living his horse life. He's also so cute. He's like a dark bay with some splash, paint markings, and just a pretty, charming, sweet guy. So he's coming back the beginning of December.
December the 3rd.
He's coming back on Giving Tuesday. So somebody give Kawasaki a home on Giving Tuesday, and that would be amazing. Look him up. I have added him back to My Right Horse.
He's a 2012.
2012. He's probably 14.3.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful pictures of him. Maribeth Harrell had him as a trainer and, did a good job with him. But he's a good boy, and it just, that condition, which is very manageable, doesn't allow him to have a real working career, and it doesn't hurt his feelings at all. We tend to have very low adoption fees on our companion horses, and also he's obviously up for a foster. I think we actually have a foster lined up if he doesn't get adopted, but it's always best to find them an actual home. So that's going to be our goal, and if that doesn't work out, he'll go.
And he gets along with anybody.
He gets along with everyone.
But you got to keep your mother out of your other pal's grain.
Yeah. So there are some feeding specifications for RER horses. It's not really that complicated, but that is something to be aware of. So give Kawasaki some consideration if you have any desire to add a companion to your home, or if you want a horse that, hey, your grandkids come over and you can put a kid on and lead him around. He can do that, but he's just not going to be a really in-work type of horse. And we're actually going to pause here. Hopefully you won't even notice it. We'll be right back.
You told them.
I know.
How are they not going to
I know,
notice
because in case they actually can tell, we are getting ready for a board meeting, and our board members are going to be hungry. So I'm going to pause this, run in here, do an order at the Thai place, and then we'll be right back with you in the flick of a lamb's tail. Is that a saying?
Is that a real
flick? The flick of a lamb's tail.
I haven't heard that.
Flick of a lamb's tail. Oh my gosh, I'm back. Got that ordered in a timely way. Shakes of a lamb's tail, some amount of shakes. That's or three.
Shakes of a lamb's tail.
Was I saying flick?
Yeah, you said flicks.
No.
It's 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
You know what I'm disappointed about? We've been down some ding-a-lings lately. We couldn't think of really any good ding-a-lings.
No.
So we had to go back to...
Maybe they're getting tired of being featured.
They must be.
We've
because
chased them all.
we had to go back to ding-a-lings from the summer because we had so many we couldn't get them all on the podcast.
Right.
So this one, I liked this one in the way that you hate a thing.
Yeah.
So it was this comment that said, talking about the Appalachian Trainer Face-Off auction.
Why do you keep referring to them as adopted? That's a sale.
It says bought. Don't you mean bought? And I thought, sir or ma'am, have you seen our adoption application and adoption agreement?
That one was a guy.
It was a dude. Of course it was.
I think this is our first guy ding-a-ling.
First guy ding-a-ling. So yeah, it was like, don't you mean the bought? And I mean, I remember going in and, making some kind of comment, but it's impossible to copy and paste the whole adoption agreement process. But if you're a listener and if you wondered, like, what is the difference? And if you've heard Appalachian Trainer Face-Off auction, it's a fundraising event, but, these aren't purchases. And when you adopt, it's not a purchase. It does work differently. And, I always kind of akin it to, if you have a homeowners association and you can't even paint your house unless they approve it.
We will let them paint their horse.
You can,
it sets off some of the followers. But
let me tell you what, until you adopt one, you're sure not trimming its mane.
No, well, now they have.
Well, and we did allow Colby to make the dinosaur. What was it? Did you see?
I saw
Stegosaurus mane on the mule. Mules are an exception. We will let you roach a mane or do something on mules. But yeah, so that ding-a-ling, the bought. Don't you mean bought? No, sir, actually.
He said, what is this adoption nonsense? Refer to it like it is they are bought.
Yeah, they bought a horse at an auction. I was like, no, actually, you don't actually know what you're talking about. So that was...
But that adopting them at the auction comes with a whole lot of perks, though.
Well, it comes with so many perks. So I don't want to make it sound negative.
Look at the lighting out here.
It does look pretty. It kind of looks magical.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you guys can't see this, but it does kind of look like this golden magical wash
with black sky behind it. It's weird.
There are a lot of perks to not just adopting, But there are a lot of perks to adopting at the ATFO. Even, we had Travis adopt this year for $14,000. A 10-year-old Haflinger gelding on the sales market, that safe with that much training, was worth more than that. And the honesty factor of representing horses and wanting them to go to just the right fit and taking a lot of the risk out of the process is worth, to me, that's invaluable. But some of these horses are going through the event for $2,000 adoption fees when the training alone that they just had put in them in 100 days is worth, 2 times that amount. These days, most trainers, even at a lower level of training, are charging $1,000 a month.
Well, outside of the training, though, it's the other things that come with it, too. Like, if you have a problem, there are so many of us to reach out to help you solve that problem. Or the ulcer meds, we've helped a lot of our adopters with ulcer meds, or there's just so much that
in helping them, like knowing the horse as well as we do. So if they run into an issue, saying, hey, you're going to look for a trainer, because no matter what, where a horse comes from throughout your life, you should be working with trainers with your horse. And knowing the horse well enough to guide them correctly as to what's the best fit for that horse. So not only do we know hundreds of trainers and know how they train very well, but then we know the horses. And we can say, hey, this is the right fit for you if you're looking to get your horse, 60 more days, or, you've run into a bump in the road. And, really make sure you're investing well, because, otherwise you're kind of on your own out there, or you're working with people that this is their industry and their incomes depend on making a living. And there are tons of honest people out there, but we as a nonprofit, our only goal is making it work for you and the horse. That's it. We want the horse to be safe and it to work. So we don't have any motivation to do anything to set
kickbacks from those trainers.
No, we're getting no kickbacks, but our motivation is the horse to be in a safe, good home where the person's happy with the horse. So, adoption, auction, don't you mean purchase? No, sir. No, we didn't mean that.
We didn't.
So our topic this month, I think it's kind of an emotional, very sad topic, and I'll let Suzanna start it off because she's who took this call.
Listen, even telling this, I'm sorry, but this might make me cry because it just broke my heart. And here I go already. But I took a call one day not too long ago from this really, really elderly lady. I think she said she was 81 maybe. And she had these 2 half-brothers that she had raised. And the one half-brother was losing his sight. He was almost completely blind and had started some really dangerous behavior. And the other brother was so attached to him that she knew she needed to put the blind one to sleep because he'd actually hurt them. And they just were too elderly to get out of his way, and it wouldn't have been fair to rehome him. And she called and talked to me at first to ask me if I thought it was reasonable to put the brother who was really attached to him to sleep as well, because the blind one had gotten hurt one time and had to be on stall rest. And the non-blind one had really destroyed things, just absolutely wild, trying to get back to his brother, even though he was standing right outside the stall. And she just thought it would be too much emotional trauma for him to live without the brother, so she wanted to put them both to sleep at once. And of course, I told her that was perfectly ethical. They were like 17 and 18 or something like that. It seemed like sound reasoning to me. But then she called back just absolutely crying. And I knew it was her, and I didn't have any idea what was going on. And when she got calmed down, she said that the veterinarian had actually gotten out there and pulled up the drugs and walked out to the field. And when he saw them both standing there grazing peacefully, he threw the drugs on the ground and said, "Call me back when he's down and he can't get up," and refused to euthanize him.
Oh, burns me up.
Oh, and she was just so upset. She's like, "I just don't even know what we're going to do. I can't handle the one anymore. We're going to get hurt again more seriously than we did. And I guess I'm doing the wrong thing because the veterinarian said they're fine and made me feel like an awful person. And what should I do?" And I'm like, "Ma'am, we will find you someone to put those horses to sleep. Just give me a little bit and we will find you something, because that veterinarian should have never done that."
And so we, because of, the network, one of our fosters was able to connect us with a vet, and the vet from this new location went out and had absolutely zero reservations.
No, he was like, after he saw how hard the blind one was to actually get your hands on and handle, he was like, you were absolutely doing the right thing.
And so, and the woman called you back after that, right?
And thanked us so much and said she was planting 2 trees on their graves that would grow and intertwine with each other like their lives were intertwined, and crying then. I was crying, she was crying. There's a lot of crying.
And this is not the first time. This is the worst example I've ever experienced. I mean, I just heard through even Suzanna sharing, but it's the worst example I think Heart of Phoenix has gone through. But it's nowhere near the first time.
No, I've had
Numerous.
a call with a really laminitic horse that the veterinarian was like, well, if you do all these things, you'll get him through it. And yeah, he'll be suffering for a while, but then in the end, he'll be fine. And he was bad off.
Well, and I took a call, and I won't give the specifics, but I took a call with a leading surgeon recently that made this statement to me. We're just going for life existing now.
Yeah, life existing.
Life existing. I was like, what is this? And so here's
Not
the
even
thing.
comfortable life existing.
No, it was 100%
just
life.
preservation of life.
That was it, exactly. There was zero chance of quality of life, just preservation of life. And so, and this isn't to pick on veterinarians, far more vets want to tell you to euthanize than feel comfortable telling you. So that's the truth. Most vets want to tell you and feel like you won't hear them. And so they don't share it. And I've been told that by dozens of veterinarians.
Dozens of vets.
But the fact does exist where vets do have different views on, when euthanasia should take place that are outside of the AAEP guidelines. American Academy of Equine Practitioners have very specific guidelines, and they're excellent. And so anyone who is in veterinary practice that is AAEP certified should ascribe to those guidelines. That vet that did this to this old lady clearly absolutely did not.
And maybe that was his 20th horse he was going to euthanize that day. And poor vets, I mean, what an awful job. But
in that way, I think
we have a lot of compassion for the vets.
And we have excellent vets. And there is this question of, I remember somebody asking this question, who is the client, the person paying the bill or the horse? Well, to me, I mean, it is a fine line, but to me, the horse's welfare must be paramount. But welfare isn't existing. Welfare is absence of pain considerations. And so,
well, an absence of mental anguish also.
Correct. And it's also keeping human beings safe. That's true. And vets safe and farriers safe. So there's a lot of considerations up to when the line has been crossed and the advice that's been given is dangerous and detrimental, both to humans and horses. But
kudos to her also for not saying free to a good home.
Right. And the people wonder, why are all these horses turned out at these low-end sales? And yes, there are people who are going to do that anyway. But there are some people that if the vet had given better guidance and been firm, maybe the decisions would have been different. And I know for certain I've been involved in stories where that was the case. I've taken calls or gotten emails, and Suzanna's taken many, where a vet is involved and you're like, this is clearly an animal in horrific suffering that can't be corrected even with basic knowledge about horses. Why are we having this conversation? And so the veterinary field is shrinking. It's a hard field. We know that it is. We tend to have incredible vets that we get to work with, and we are very lucky. And
yes, we are.
In all of that, but in all professions and in all walks of life, there are bad apples, and so you run into them. If you ever are in a situation where you feel like your horse's quality of life or your safety is in question, give us a call if your vet is not supportive of a decent outcome, because we will help you find a vet that will walk you through the process and you will feel comfortable with the outcome for sure.
It's so hard for people, so hard for people to realize that horses aren't sitting around going, gosh, I can't wait to see my grandkids.
Right. Tomorrow.
They
what's
just
coming
want
tomorrow?
Right now to be a good day. They don't care about tomorrow or think about tomorrow.
I've been singing the Little Orphan Annie song. I even played it. Tomorrow. But horses don't care. They don't. I was on a kick on it yesterday. I went to the old movie and was playing the the soundtrack from
Yeah.
Broadway. But they don't care about tomorrow.
They
Do not care about tomorrow. They live primarily in the today and a little bit in yesterday. And honestly, them living in yesterday gets in the way of the today because it can cause so much baggage to be carried over. But, if you are in a situation where you have a horse that is disadvantaged and you don't want to pass that horse off, but you can't continue to be the caregiver, euthanasia is a perfectly humane, ethical option. That is our position. It will always be our position.
From both sides, because, the veterinarians sometimes don't want to put things to sleep, but also the veterinarians want to say, would you put your daggone horse to sleep?
More often than not.
And know that this customer is going to go off their rockers, and they have to make money. So that's a problem,
Well,
too.
it is, and I think that's the hard thing to understand that, vets don't make, they're not in the big bucks. They're not. Human neurosurgeons. And so when you think if you tell 50% of the clients you have the truth that they're going to just go vet shop, then the burden's on you to actually be an ethical owner. So it's not like we are not throwing the ball on the court of vets.
No.
It's in your court to know what's right. And this lady, she knew what was right, and she worked to get the right outcome because she did run into
and then
a
she
vet
got traumatized.
when she was terribly traumatized. But she did stick with it and get the right outcome. And in her case, finding a different veterinarian was the right choice. But make sure you are fair to your vets and that they feel like they can tell you the truth and that you're not going to go vet shopping to get an answer that's not what's best for your horse. Because I see that a lot. Suzanna sees it a lot. And I'm sure some people listening here, they can think of a friend that's probably done that sort of thing. So don't be that owner. And if you're listening, don't be that vet. But Suzanna and I are now going to be a few minutes late to our board meeting. So we will see you next month for December.
We won't see them.
Well, we'll be around next month. You'll be able to listen to us next month.
Yes.
Until then, happy Thanksgiving. I'm Tinia.
I'm Suzanna.
And that's Horses of Courses.